Well, growing fallout this morning to Governor Cuomo's plan to reimpose lockdown restrictions in hot zones across New York City. The Cluster Action Initiative applies to most of Brooklyn and parts of Queens. Now, in those red zones, mass gatherings will be prohibited. Schools and non-essential businesses will close. Dining will be limited to takeout only, and capacity at houses of worship drops to 25%. We have team coverage this morning. We begin with Today in New York's Miles Miller, who's live in Borough Park, where protests were held into the early morning hours. Miles.
And Darlene, good morning to you. Yeah, right here on 13th Avenue, where just a few hours ago, the streets were packed with people. I want to show you, they started a fire in the middle of the street here. You can see some of the burned out remnants of that fire in the middle of the street. Protesters taking to the streets here in Borough Park, outraged by a new state-mandated restriction that's been imposed on areas like this one. Now, synagogues, schools, and non-essential businesses are closed due to an uptick in positive COVID-19 cases. You see in the video where the cardboard boxes are set on fire, the scene around 1:30 this morning, with a large crowd lighting that fire right here at 46th and 13th Avenue. They are angered over the order signed by the governor and enforced by Mayor Bill de Blasio, by the Sheriff's Department, as well as the NYPD, to shut down schools. It completely limits houses of worship to 10 people in areas here. And much of this neighborhood in Borough Park is subject to those measures. They are some of the most restrictive measures anywhere in the state, and they would run for about 2 weeks until the infection rate drops down. At one point, the situation got so tense that 2 deputy sheriffs were chased away. Leaders here say their voices are not being heard.
Mr. Cuomo and Mr. de Blasio think we're nobodies. We are not nobodies. Are we nobodies? No!
And at one point, a person in the crowd here who was wearing a mask was attacked by other people in the crowd. We are told that that person was taken to Maimonides Hospital. I spoke with his brother and his mother. They both say that he is doing fine, but they say this is all an end result of what happened here, is all an end result of these restrictive measures being put place by the governor. And a number of people in this neighborhood are just very upset to know that these restrictions are happening. They say that they've been doing all they can to prevent the coronavirus from spreading here. In fact, last week we were here when they were handing out masks to many, many people in the community. Live in Borough Park this morning, I'm Miles Miller. Today in New York. Back to you.
All right, Miles, thank you.
Now, those rollbacks also have a major impact on businesses that are already struggling all across the city. Today, New York's Tracy Strand joins us now from Borough Park in Queens with that part of the story. Tracy.
Oh, Michael, we're actually coming to you from one of the zip codes that are one of the concerns, according to Governor Cuomo, here in Borough Park. They've had a 7-day positivity average of COVID of 3%. That's why some of the businesses here, like the one behind me, in schools, may be shut down all over again. We want to show you video now because this was all announced yesterday by Governor Cuomo, part of his Cluster Action Initiative. Now, the restrictions are going to pertain to 3 different zones in the city. The most severe is defined by the red section of hotspots, where mass gatherings are going to be strictly prohibited. Restaurants are going to be limited to just takeout only, and non-essential businesses will end up closing. Schools will end up going remote only. Now, these are clusters that are based on the number of COVID cases in a particular area. Mayor de Blasio said these rollbacks are going to happen quickly, going into effect by Thursday.
We have to close down again. Like, it's not only am I going to be out of a job, but our staff. It's not fair to us that you're going to close our neighborhood down, but then somebody can go right into Forest Hills, and like it's going to drive the business away from us.
Mayor de Blasio added a 13th zip code of concern, South Williamsburg. They're part of the city's COVID watch list as daily cases average topped around 500 for the first time in a long time. And he described these shutdowns as a, quote, necessary rewind, trying to prevent that potential second wave of COVID from hitting the city. There are mixed messages, however. As we just said, Mayor de Blasio is saying this is something that would go into effect by Thursday. The governor is saying get adjusted by Friday. So we have to see how this all shakes out in those 13 zip codes. We're live in Rego Park, Queens this morning. Tracy Strahan, Today in New York. Michael, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Tracy, thank you very much. Now, on Long Island as well, a Nassau County town that's being labeled a COVID-19 hotspot. It's a surprise, though, to many of the people who live there. The village of Lawrence reporting an infection rate above 3%. Governor Cuomo blaming the uptick on large religious gatherings. The community has a significant Orthodox Jewish population. South Nassau's medical chairman, who is also a rabbi, says no group should be singled out. He says officials should keep stressing the importance of measures to stop the spread of the virus.
When you put it in that perspective, I'm hoping most people will say, well, I'm doing a mitzvah. I'm doing a very good deed by masking. And that should be the approach, as opposed to slapping people.
The mayor of Lawrence tells us he had no idea the COVID numbers were on the rise in his town. Nassau County officials say they're going to be pushing to increase testing there.
If you are coming into our area from New Mexico, you now have to quarantine for 14 days. That is the only state to be added to the tri-state travel advisory list. 35 states and territories are now on it. No area was removed. In fact, we're told COVID infection rates in Virginia and Ohio are teetering on the edge of getting added to the list as well.